Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. What are you going to call yourself? I already told you, you don't need websites. You don't need business cards. The flavor of the day, just like Elon Musk is the flavor of the day is calling yourself founding director. That's the flavor. Because you shouldn't be the CEO. In a couple of cases, you will be the CEO, and then you're the CEO founder. But that's the flavor of the day, and it seems to be more than enough to get past just about anybody, including the bankers. The only time they'll ask you how much of a founder are you is when the bank wants to know who's going to be on the hook if this thing goes sideways. And as long as you keep a majority, as it's called, of 50.1%, and normally that translates into 51%, most of the time they can't throw you out. We have found, as I mentioned the second day, I think, some of the kids, even with a majority, have figured out a way to get fucking thrown out. But for the most part, you're in. Now let's talk about, since I brought up the percentage, and the average of you normally is about 2/3, 60 to 65%. What do you give these bums? Okay. Remember, with 3 or 4 exceptions in the room, you got right now 100% of nothing. 2 or 3 of you have already started deals, Mr. 8.5 to 12 over here, and a couple others. And I believe in more directors as opposed to less directors, because even though these guys look healthy, and you can't ask them supposedly by law now, are you healthy? I do. Are you healthy? And when I rarely get asked, but other than arthritis, I'm super healthy. I've tried everything from prayer to herbs for my arthritis, and everything in between. The only thing I haven't tried is meditation, which I'm loath and I won't do that. But other than that, industry experts, you should have 2 to 3. If you're going to be a conglomerate, which I don't recommend because those are harder and they have lower valuations, you're giving 1 to 3%. The new Viking bitch model is you tell them 1 and then you give them 3. Or you tell them 1 and then you give them 2. Now, whether you vest them or not is another question. And by vesting means, in other words, over a 3 or 5 year period, if they're giving them 1, you're giving them a quarter every year for 4 years. I don't like that method because when I pick people, I almost always pick the right people. But when you pick people, you may not pick the right people. So as a defense mechanism, and I don't like anything defensive, I like everything offensive, you may say, okay, over 4 years. So they get 0.25% over 4 years, and then you're going to really give them, instead of 1, you're going to give them 2. So it would be 0.5% every year. Oh, okay, go ahead.
When do you start?
Right away. Right, the first board meeting. Okay, so industry experts, let's just say 2% each, and there's 2 or 3 of those. Okay. Then you have an in-house lawyer, not your in-house lawyer, as opposed to your out-house lawyer. Not outhouse, I don't mean shithouse, because that's what outhouse means in America. Outhouse lawyers means the law firm, okay? And when Pune just smiled at me, I thought of the Millionaire Dog or whatever that movie was, and the guy fell in the toilet and fell down into that's real. I mean, we've lived there a long time, and they actually have those kind of toilets. Okay, so you've got your in-house lawyer, and normally he's going to get 2 or 3%. Now, this is a guy that's come from a big firm. He can actually be still working for a big firm. Your non-executive directors, as opposed to your executive directors, your non-executive directors can be working someplace else. They may be on 3 or 4 or 5 boards. What they can't do is be on a board that's doing exactly what you're doing. If you're rolling up assisted living, he shouldn't be, because he's conflicted, being on another roll-up of assisted living. He could be on an IT roll-up. He could be on, God forbid, a manufacturing roll-up, but only one assisted living.
But they cannot be working, right?
No. The non-executive directors can be working because you're not paying them shit. And especially you cheap fuck. You might as well be Scottish. Doesn't he look like a cheap fucking Scrooge miser? He even looks like a cheap fucking Scrooge miser. And he is. Having spent half an hour with him, I mean, if your face was on fire and he was walking by, he wouldn't piss on it to put it out. Okay. So your in-house lawyer has to have transaction experience in your field. Now, a guy that's got transaction experience in cybersecurity, and you're asking him you shouldn't be asking him to be your in-house lawyer for healthcare. Now, whether he's got experience in assisted living and home health, which are the bottom of the food chain, he may have transactional experience in buying hospitals, which indirectly he'll have experience because all hospitals have something to do with assisted living and home health. So you may not find him having experience in transactions for assisted living, but he has to have general experience in doing acquisitions in the healthcare business. Okay, so now you've got the lawyer, now you've got an in-house accountant, which is not your CFO. And you're going to email Kim, at least a third of you. Can my in-house accountant be my CFO? The answer is no. But Montenegro is going to email Kim. I know he is. You have an accountant. Why do you have an accountant and a CFO, which is almost always accountant? Checks and balances. And both of them are checks and balances for each other and checks and balances for your outsourced accounting firm. And you're going to give that guy 2 or 3. Whether you vest him or not, that's up to you. Yep, correct. Then you're going to have a CFO, which 99 times out of 100 is also an accountant. What? Yeah. You'll give them. We have people give them 3/10. We've had people give them 1/10 and want to know why they quit. 0.1%, and they're not Scottish. I mean and then they blame it. Why I misunderstood? Well, you're dumb enough to misunderstand, but we're not giving less than 1% to anybody and expect them to do anything and stay. So we have a chief financial officer in this country or in parts of Europe. They call him a finance director. And he or she or it will get 5%. 5%. And they should be out of the big 4, but they can be out of the big 5 or 6. And there is a gazillion of them. Now, those guys can't be working. Those guys and I told you the big firms give you the last year or two that you're with a big law firm or a big accounting firm to phase yourself out and feather your nest with other directorships. Because in big companies, other directorships will pay them between $100,000 and $250,000 plus stock options, plus travel when they're going to meetings and their hotels and all that stuff. And we're not doing any of that. We're giving them transaction money when we do deals. The more deals we do, the more the directors get paid. So now we've got industry experts, we've got out-house lawyer, we've got an out-house accountant, and we got the chief financial officer. Now, in most cases, you're going to get a CEO. And CEOs are 5 to 8%. 5 to 8%. And again, if you vested, that's fine. And they have to have been CEOs someplace where they showed excellence, not a wannabe CEO. They have to have been CEO someplace. They grew something from 50 to 500 million or 500 million to 2 billion or whatever. But they have to have shown that they understand what growth is, and they have to have had transactional experience in healthcare. There's not that many that have transactional experience in home health and assisted living, the bottom tier. because that is not that's not something you go to Wharton and get an MBA and come out and do. You know, you don't go to Oxford and get an MBA and come out and roll up bedpans. The bottom end of assisted living is also called rolling up bedpans, where you wipe the old people's ass and, okay, that's bedpans. It's not, in fact, most people don't put it on their resume because there's nothing to brag about. You can get rich off of it, but there's nothing to brag about. You don't go home and tell your mom that I'm wiping old people's asses and dragging out dead bodies of your 40 unit. And remember, the rule of thumb is 40 units, both in the UK and the US. And we had a guy just a year ago came back and wrote, and he did 5 beds, 7 beds. He had 7 different units added up to 40. And I mean, they were not in the same town or in the same village. They were all over the fucking country. And he wanted to know why he couldn't take advantage of laws of economy and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, 40 units. Some people do 30, 35 units. Unit meaning a bed. You had a question.
Question is about CEO. The deal that I'm working in right now.
Oh, we don't want to know about your deal.
Example, what if it's going to be similar situation and they already have CEO and CEO already working on it?
Then, every day this deal gets worse. Every fucking day, your deal gets worse.
I need to know that.
Okay, next.
So
I told you the first time you told me about it. Next.
But what if I'm going to get across with the same thing?
No, well, you haven't come across. You're not going to find another 87-year-old fuck that his deal's managed and who is brain dead, who's managed by 3 lawyers in a trust. That you got extremely unlucky. Karma came back for your life, for all the shitty things you've done in your life.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Yeah.
When you say executive directors can't be working, do they have to not be working right away or from when the company is formed?
Exactly. From when the company's formed. Correct. Did everybody just understand what he said? Montenegro, did you understand? Oh, fuck. You must be on the same brain dead wavelength then if he understood. Okay, so now 2 or 3 of you can be CEO, and I told you the long saga. Anders didn't want to be CEO, but he is CEO, and he's done a great job at it. Because you think every acquisition you're going to make, hopefully, you're going to find a general manager, you can work up to be CEO, but it hasn't worked out like that. So, and the CEO gets, 7-8%. He's an executive director along with the CFO. Okay. And then there's the chairman who normally gets 10%. Some will get more, like myself, and I'm not asking for any jobs here. And the most chairman, or if they're like myself, I will not take a vesting. I get it all at once or fuck yourself. Don't waste my time. Okay. And some really big guys won't take vesting. They'll think it's insulting, like I do. But there are chairmen that do take vesting, so fine. And then you vest them, over 5 years or whatever. But almost all vesting programs, upon a change of control, if you sell, in the second year, they're accelerated to the total amount that they would get in 10%. So even though they only earn 4% vis-a-vis the vesting, they'll go to 10% immediately. In fact, all of the vesting programs, upon change of control, meaning if you sell it or somebody else takes over your position as a majority shareholder, virtually all vesting programs are accelerated. And that's just, I'm not saying it's the rule of thumb. It's just that when you ask people to move, and I believe in under one roof. A lot of these companies now have the CFO in Aberdeen and the CEO in Manchester. And I don't believe in those programs. It's the modern way, but the programs when the majority of the senior management are under one roof have worked the best the last 30 years, and they continue to work the best. Although a lot of them are now virtual. and you heard that the Viking bitch said, I didn't ask him to move. Now, and one of them moved, and then she fired him. Sold his house, gave up his job, transferred his kids from school, and then she fired him, and she should have fired him. Actually, should have fired him. The reason that, I believe that she has more guilt is because she had an inkling she should have fired him before he moved. But you want to give him a second chance. You want to give him I operate on just as you only have a first time to make a first impression. When I see you, it's the same thing. I mean, if they fuck up, they're gone. Now, these are experienced people. These aren't kids just out of college or university. They've been doing this 10, 20, 30 years. They know what's right and what's wrong. So you make one mistake, you're gone. That's it. That's it. And if they ask you in a direct or indirect way about what's your policy on, accountability and, you operate on 3 strikes, or that's the end of the interview. If they ask that kind of question, just as if they ask for money, or just as if they ask for expenses, that's the end of the goddamn interview. Because, that shouldn't even come to the light of the conversation with these guys or gals. They know. They know. And when you see a resume that has a big gap in it, I don't even talk to them. I'm not even interested why they have a gap. In other words, 4 or 5 years, they got list nothing. And some of them bullshit you, I was contemplating life and I wrote a book. Well, that's fine. You can go do that again with somebody else. Or if they have 7 jobs in 12 years. Next, I'm not interested. And when I've used recruiters, and I have used the top-notch recruiters, they know better than to send those kind of resumes out. There is no, 1 in 1,000 may have a good reason. A gal took care of her mother for 5 years that was dying. Well, that's fine, but you're not going to be with this group. That's it. And some people, I can look at your face, and some people think that's harsh. Well, somebody will hire her, though. In the 21st century, somebody will give that gal a job. It's just not me. We limit the negative things that can happen as much as humanly possible. We don't want, and life will still happen, but we want to eliminate as much as humanly possible. And these people aren't just out of school. So, remember, we're not giving them 6 months to learn the job. If you have to teach these people how to be in their position, you picked the wrong person. Because that way they can hit the ground running. That way they can hit the ground running towards a fucking gunfire. It's not you to train them up. I'm not saying you won't have training programs, okay. But that's not with your key people you start the fucking business with. This is not a deal like 7 of you drop out of graduate school at Stanford or Oxford, and you're going to do this deal, and you're sitting around in your boxer shorts and brassieres, and that's not this deal. This deal, they're seasoned professionals to begin with, and they're advising you who is not a seasoned professional. And instead of advising, they're really telling you. And in the scripts, it shows, I want you to tell me before I do something wrong, not after I do something wrong. And not all the senior executives can do that. And even though it's 7 simple steps, and intellectually this is easy to do, why doesn't everybody make an acquisition in 26 days? We all know why. Well, then 46 days, 66 days, 96 days, and most of the people that you've heard, it's 9 months to a year and a half, if I remember correctly, everybody included that you've listened to so far. because shit happens, life happens. Okay, so now you've got the chairman at 10%, and remember, it's somebody you don't have to explain about. That crystal clear. We use Ben Carson, God love him, which is probably pretty difficult to get him, Dr. Ben Carson. But there are people. I mean, one of the kids just got the former head of the Princeton School of Medicine, who was getting ready to retire. A well-known doctor, a high-profile guy, and after 25 years in practice as a high-profile doc, then 15 or 18 years as head of the Princeton Medical School. I mean, he's perfect, as they say, perfect. In the back, yes, sir.
What time investment do you expect from the executive directors when you start the company?
Did you say what type of investment?
Time investment you expect from those who are executive officers?
I haven't got to that point yet. Yes. Okay. Now that you brought it up, I'll get to it. Okay. And as part of the script, we want your time, your expertise, no investment, money investment from you. And in the beginning, the first few months, maybe 10 hours a month, which is true. 10 hours a month because you're going to be talking to them about deals. And if I used to like them close, so I could go, because remember, I didn't know anything about oil and gas. I mean, I used to go and have a coffee with them, have a drink with them, have a lunch with them, because every day in a complicated business like oil and gas, exploration, refining, marketing, every day 2 or 3 things were coming up that I didn't know. And that's an understatement. I mean, there were years that I didn't know anything. So I wanted to bounce it off him. In that time frame, there weren't Zoom calls, et cetera. And if I'm on 30 Rock and he's on 57th and Madison, go see him. Or they used to like to come to my office for obvious reasons, because I was in 30 Rock, the penthouse of 30 Rock in the beginning. I didn't know all that. I didn't think that through. I just jumped on Bob Anderson, the former Secretary of Treasury, because he was an oil and gas guy who knew a lot about oil and gas, and he was a very famous lawyer, and he was big in government. So I leapt on him. Didn't do any research, didn't do anything. And when he quit, and he gave me my 18 shares back, 18% back, his wife was dying of cancer. His wife is junior high school sweetheart that he married 60 years, and he wanted to spend the last few months with her, and so he left. So then I assumed the chairmanship. Not that I should have, but I assumed the chairmanship because I kept on comparing everybody that I interviewed to him. No comparison. And his son, he used to live in Dallas, and when I'd go, even after he was chairman, I'd go by and see him when I was visiting Jerry Orman in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And his son was there, and his son, this is on the internet, but his son wanted to be a minister, and he was going to go to Hardin Simmons Bible College so he could be close to his mother. It was about 30 miles away. And so I was there in the coffee in the drawing room, and his father said, who else have you been accepted by? Harvard, Princeton, Yale, divinity schools. And he said that you're going to have to explain about Hardin Simmons College for the rest of your life. You'll never have to explain about Harvard. So the kid went off to Harvard. Okay, so now we've got these people that you've given this either with a vesting program or not a vesting program, and about 10 hours a month. Some 0 hours a month, other than when you're talking about the update that you gave them. And they will have, sometimes they have questions on the updates, and you're going to get the video update. That's kind of the gold standard one that we use. And now they're sitting at home, looking at the computer, waiting for you to send them something. I mean, literally. You're going to get the answers from these guys and gals, at 2 a.m, and they'll be answering you. That's the good. If they don't respond, and in 24, 36 hours, something's not right. Now, when these old guys that told you they were healthy, sometimes they got sick. But and they'll, what do you think of this? Even today, the senior guys on the boards I'm on, what am I, this is my assessment. What am I overlooking or what did I miss? Okay? Now, you won't know much, but you can say, what am I overlooking and what did I miss? And from each one of the directors, you'll get a different kind of answer. You'll get one from the law perspective, from the numbers perspective, from the two accountants, from the industry experts. You'll get a bunch of perspectives because you're not going to know. You're not going to know that they're changing the law for assisted living in Alabama. You're not going to know that the insurance is changing from a 65% payout to 40%. You're not going to know any of that. And I'm telling you, it's not your job to keep up with it. Otherwise, you'll be reading rules and regulations for the rest of your life, and you'll never do a deal. Because once you get this all settled, 95% of your time is deals and money. Deals and money, that's it. And they're going to be pushing you for a board meeting. We don't need a board meeting, but we're going to talk until we have something to talk about, i.e., potential acquisitions. And I like 4 or 5 potential acquisitions that you've signed an LOI. You've got a letter of interest, which again means nothing. And all your LOIs are going to be subject to finance and due diligence. And as Simon said yesterday, and a couple that he had problems with, he either forgot or missed, subject to finance. But that leaves a door wider than this building for you to, if you have to, get out. And when LOIs, we do not put dollar or pound amounts. Let's say your idea is to buy it for $5 million. The LOI will say the offer will be 3 to 5 times EBITDA, if it's real, or 6 to 7 times EBITDA. You will do offers in EBITDA terms. So then when you knock down the EBITDA, they will focus in on the 5 times EBITDA, and you're going to really try to buy it for 3 times EBITDA. So all your offers are in EBITDA. And if they will not take an EBITDA offer, next. I don't care if it's the greatest fucking thing since motherhood. We're giving you all the latitude so it's in your favor, not theirs. They're the ones desperate to sell, not you. They're the ones that don't have any goddamn succession plan, not you. They're the ones that their wife's spitting up blood from an emphysema and he just had a motherfucking stroke, not you. EBITDA offers. And yet the fat tub of shit from Brooklyn still put cash in. Our favorite guy to poke around, he's not here. Okay. Yes, sir, in the back.
In the LOI, the 3 to 5 times EBITDA, we tell something that it's seller finance, or we, in the LOI, we put that it's seller finance or the 60-40 structure.
No. You put subject to finance and due diligence. That's why I don't brag about being my family being from Spain, because they're all thick as shit. And your templates, your examples of LOIs say exactly the same thing. But they have brownstone on the top. So I'll bet you my left testicle, he puts fucking brownstone on it because he won't redact it out. Why do I leave all the names still in? To prove my point how fucking stupid you are. That's why. I'll bet my other testicle, Montenegro does it too. Because you can't help yourself. Nobody in your family ever had a fucking dime. So why me? And you make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. There was a hand. Yes, sir.
Is it necessary for the board members to know who the other board members are before the board?
Well, now that's 2 theories. That was the next thing I was going to talk about. The one theory is you treat them like shit, you keep them in the dark, you keep them like mushrooms, you keep them in the dark and throw shit on them. Nobody knows anybody until the first board meeting. If you have a strong leadership position, like I've got a guy who's an ex-all-pro football player, went to academies, blah, 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 and he had no problem keeping the board members in line. Nobody knows anything. He sold them on his dream. They'll come together for the first board meeting. Most of you tell the other board members who they are because you trying to leverage off after the second guy to get the third and the fourth and fifth guy. But then you got to keep them apart. And that doesn't really take any fucking leadership skills. It's just, there will be no correspondence. There will be no meeting up. Remember, the three guys in the Starbucks on Piccadilly, and the guy just walked away. So you pick your own poison. I'm strong enough to do the latter. When I tell you that there's you got nothing to talk about. Now, occasionally, by accident, the guys, went to school together. They know each other, and they've been playing golf twice a month for 25 years. So, then you just have to roll with the punches. But they've got nothing to talk about. Occasionally, two guys will be on another board together. But that's rare. But it does happen. But I assure you, when they get together, before you do a deal, the only thing they're going to talk about is why the fuck are you there? You add no value. Zero. In fact, most of your cases, you add negative value. But it was your idea and your energy. And then when they bring it up, remember your chairman steps into the breach. Next on the agenda, if it wasn't for the little weasel from India, we wouldn't fucking be here. We know he's a thief, but he brought us together. So shut the fuck up. Next. If the chairman don't do that, or they said nice. Nice. Well, everybody says shit nicer than me, but I want to make sure. See, some of you in this room will fire somebody and they'll come to work anyway because they don't know you fired them. Now, see, I don't understand that. I've had nobody ever show up in 51 and a half years that I fired not knowing he was fucking fired. When I fire the motherfucker, the cocksucker knows he's fired. Security comes, drags him out of the office, throws him in the parking lot, takes all his shit away. We'll send you your shit in a fucking box next week. Get the fuck out. And you'll fire him. Well, it hasn't worked out. And we're not sure how to overcome it. What? Okay, so now they're giving you 10 hours a month, and then you get a deal to look at, or you get 4 deals to look at, 5 deals to look at. You haven't sent those to them, but you've talked about generically before you go and sign an LOI. And then you may have looked at 25 deals and has sent 25 deals to them, and there's only 4 or 5 left. So then when you have the board meeting, and you set it up like the paper that I showed you that you're going to get on your thumb drive, that'll be the first time it should be the first time they see each other. And if they're seeing each other more before that, you've got a problem. You've got a problem. You may not lose control. And remember, you're having them before the board meeting. This is what we're going to, is there anything you can't support? And then if they say that, then here's your resignation. I had two envelopes, as they say in Kentucky, in both sides of my deal. I'm legendary for that. And some will say, well, I don't support it. And they say, well, and they'll just resign and go away. But occasionally, 1 in 100, 5 in 100, at the board meeting, they vote against you anyway, because you're a weenie. And even though they lied to you and they said, Lancaster, we're with you, we're behind you, then they vote against you anyway. So then what do? You stop the meeting. The meeting's over. You adjourn the meeting. You go back to your lawyers, which should be at the meeting anyway. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. And you call for an extraordinary general meeting. Now, if they vote against you and the meeting, the company's already been formed, then you hold an extraordinary general meeting. You have more than 50%. You don't invite them, and the slate is a new board of directors because you fired everybody. You can do that from day one to the day before you go public. It's obviously easier to do when you only have had a few acquisitions. Before you form it's only a symbolic gesture before you form a company. It's not a symbolic gesture if you've already formed the company. Like you formed the company before, right? You had a deal. Which one of you told me that you formed a company before you had a deal? Somebody in this goddamn room told me they had formed the company anyway, before you did a deal. I'm going to go back and check my notes now. And after lunch, I'm going to rip your fucking head off for not fessing up, being honest. But as long as you have more than 50%, you're in control. But you'd have to fire everybody and start again. And you send out an agenda. On the agenda is the new slate of board members, which they're not on. And then you, as majority shareholder, vote everybody in. But that doesn't happen too often. If they normally agree, they'll follow through. They'll follow through. When you start looking at deals, it's going to be more than 10 hours a month. The CFO and the in-house lawyer and the CEO will spend more time than the others. The industry experts will spend more time when you're doing due diligence. But even after you're doing deals, like for in Andres' case, I spend 1 or 2 hours a month. The in-house lawyer spends now 10 hours a month. The CFO and the 2 industry experts spend 20, 25 hours a month because they're kicking the tires. They're going to see the facilities. Now that he's got 25 or 30 deals, the CFO is on full-time, gets paid a salary. Andres is on full-time, he gets paid a salary. And I believe one of the industry experts is on full-time. Goodbye, YouTube.